All right, welcome everyone to our February Plant Docs cooking class, simple and easy. And because February is Heart Health Month, I wanted to focus on leafy greens. And they're just so easy to cook with, but a lot of people, when they buy beets, they throw away the greens and they're so good for you. So I really wanted to talk about those along with kale. So they're two, fairly simple recipes. What's more time consuming is just these beetroots take a long time to cook. So the recipe that we shared with everyone, and everyone should have got it in the automated email when you signed up. And just to go over, you're welcome to cook along with me or watch, but it's really meant, I'm going at a pace to cook along, hopefully not too fast. So the recipe for the beets is actually a method I've never used before. So I'm just like the doctor in me is like this perpetual experimenter. I'm going to do it two ways and just compare and see how they come out and see which one tastes better. So the New York Times method wants to use like an oven safe casserole like this with a quarter inch of water in the bottom and cook it like that in a 425 oven. So if you're cooking along, preheat your oven to 425. The other method is just boiling the beets, which is what I normally do and have done for years. I know the New York Times, it's very impressive, but I'm going to just pull a card over that saying I'm Ukrainian. So, I brought my Ukrainian flag. I grew up eating beets, and also I've been growing beets for years. So when you grow a vegetable, you really get to know it. So gonna kind of compare methods. So if you want to do the boiling method, I have a pot that's kind of like a medium saucepan filled with a bunch of water, and I'm going to put that on to boil and preheat the oven. So, or whatever, you could choose your method. You can watch and then decide later. So the beets, I also just disagreed with one little thing in this recipe. They said to cut them like this and then, roast them like this in the pot. But my experience is all the dirt kind of collects in there. I don't want anything to do with that. So I usually do this. So you cut off the top and you get rid of where the dirt accumulates. I just feel better about that. Might be just a personal decision. I throw out this root. It's probably completely edible. We throw out a lot of stuff that's edible.
Sandy, do you think by boiling any nutrients are lost?
That's a great question and one I pondered myself. I do think with a lot of vegetables, when you boil them, you lose nutrients and also maybe just destroy certain phytonutrients. Like when you boil broccoli, you destroy the sulforaphane. I don't know if you destroy all of it. Beets, it seems like they're kind of this intact package. I would imagine there might be some loss. But then the other pros, cons of dry heat cooking versus moist heat is, I don't know if you guys have heard about AGEs. It stands for Advanced Glycation End Products. It's kind of nerdy, like culinary, not culinary, like food is medicine kind of stuff. And it's a real issue, especially with animal protein. When it's cooked at high heat, you get a lot of these AGEs and they're carcinogenic, especially when meat is cooked dry heat, like on a grill or boiled in an oven. But you can get these AGEs from vegetables, and you get the least amount when you steam or boil them with moist heat. So that's a potential downside of the dry heat. Actually, what we're doing in here, there is moisture. So it would really apply if you were putting them on a dry tray and roasting vegetables, you do get more AGEs. So there's always upsides and downsides to everything. And just like upsides and downsides to eating things raw versus cooked. All right, so I've separated my greens. There's someone in the waiting room, Wendy. Did you see
Yep,
that?
I just let him in.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
And there are two questions,
Yeah.
Sandy. One is your thoughts about drinking the water that the veggies are boiled in.
Interesting.
I would just
Um,
make sure the beets are super clean if you're going to eat.
yeah, I know. That's what I'm thinking. Like, ooh, yeah, and I don't know, sometimes when you soak things, like you get antioxidants in water, I mean, anti nutrients. I'd have to research that to really answer that accurately. I don't know. But before you
And
go to
then,
the next question,
yeah.
you wanted the beets kind of the same size. So you don't want to like put this and this in the, anywhere together because this one's going to cook faster. So anyway, I'm just going to cut some of them up. Go on.
Question was if you could just talk a little bit about the effectiveness of beets to decrease blood pressure, which I think is
Oh
what you're
yeah,
all
I'm going
about
to get to
today.
that. They're pretty powerful. But let me just do this. When we have a lull, I'm going to talk about the nutritional value of, I'm going to compare beet greens to kale and talk about the beetroots. Great question. So if you have all the time in the world, you could, and we don't with a 1 hour class, I'm going to cut them up smaller when I boil them. Sometimes if they're small enough, like 2 inches or 3 inches, I'll just boil them whole. And the idea of making it easy is that they then, um, after they're boiled and cooled, the skins just slough off so you don't have to peel them. Another option is you can peel your beets. I hate peeling beets. I mean, as it is, my fingers are getting red. All right, so half of them I have in this pot with just a 1/4 inch of water, and I'm going to put in the oven for 45 minutes. Or 40 minutes. Let's check on Wendy. Can you remind me when 30 minutes and we'll do it then?
Yeah. And then another good question, Lane's asking about beets in the Instapot, which I've never done. I don't have an Instapot, so I
I
don't
don't
know.
either, but I'm sure it's great. People rave about their Instapots. I'm just going to put the rest of these in the boiling water. All right. That takes a long time too, to be honest. It's not like boiling is that much quicker. They still take a long time to cook. All right. They always, it's like messy, but it always washes off and it doesn't stain either. People think beets stain, but they don't. So the beautiful thing about beet greens, one of the beautiful things, um, these stems, these bright red stems, are full of um, antioxidants that make them the red color. So you're going to get, if you were to throw all this out, some people even throw out the stems and just eat the leaves, but all these stems are like so much nutrition in here. All right. So what I want to do, and I group kind of beet greens when I think about just cooking, same as like Swiss chard, same as bok choy. I want to eat those stems. With Swiss chard, they come in like a rainbow of colors, pink, red, yellow. All of those are different phytonutrients that you want. So, but they take longer. These are tough. So I'm going to separate the greens from the stems. And any like bad ends, obviously you want to cut off anything that looks yucky. And you just grab the leaf. It's kind of like kale. Um, you could also just you know, if you wanted to do a faster method, you could just chop it. Line up all the places where the leaves start, especially with the smaller leaves, and just go like this. And then you have a whole bunch at once. Some of these are really long. So yeah, I'll talk about while we're doing this and prepping it. Beet greens are one of the green veggies that have like high nitric oxide producing capabilities in your body. And like a lot of the leafy greens, arugula, and even the beetroots themselves do this. And what that means is when you're chewing these vegetables, the bacteria in your mouth interacts with the nitrates that are in these vegetables and produces something called nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is a potent vasodilator in our body, which is what we want, right? We want blood flow to our organs. We want blood flow to our brains and our kidneys, our skin. We want to be able to increase blood flow. And when you dilate your blood vessels, you're allowing a lot more blood to get through. So, and it lasts for like, it lasts for about 4 hours or so. So it wears off. It's not like it lasts all day. So that's why we talk about, for people who have heart disease, eating leafy greens multiple times a day. Because think of it like a medicine that you have to take 4 times a day because it keeps wearing off and you need it to work. And that's the way like antibiotics used to work. It's kind of like that. So, and this is what I do with Swiss chard. I have all my beautiful stems lined up. This was 2 bunches. It's a lot. 1 bunch would have been fine. And then before I do this, I'm going to preheat. I have like this big saute pan that I'm going to use. So I'm going to turn up the heat on medium to heat up my pan. All right. And we're doing no oil cooking. So for anybody that's kind of new to plant docs and the way we cook with whole food plant-based no oil, it's a surprise to some because people say, well, then how do you do it? Like, how does it not stick? But the amazing thing is it just doesn't. We're just kind of been trained to think you have to have oil in order to cook veggies, and you don't. So that was easy, right? So there's my pile of beautiful antioxidant rich stems. I'm going to just use veggie broth instead of oil. You can use water too. This is low sodium because some of the veggie broths have a ton of sodium. This is 365 brand and it has 130 milligrams in a cup, but I'm only using a couple of tablespoons. So I just put a little bit in the bottom of the pan and I'm going to add my stems. And these are going to get a head start because they're denser than the leaves. So we're going to let them cook for a couple minutes. All right. So the other thing I will mention, the other green we're going to cook with today is kale. And I chose this red Russian kale, which I don't know if you can see has this beautiful purple stem. And I'm keeping it fresh by putting it in a container of water. See, it has this beautiful purple stem. So this is going to have different antioxidant profile than a green, than a kale that doesn't have the purple. So this is going to have like the anthocyanins like you find in blueberries is in this red Russian kale. So comparing kale, and this is kind of like, when you're comparing nuts, for example, there's different nuts, that might be higher in calcium or higher in protein. It's the same with the greens. They're all good for you, right? So I still would never recommend just only eat one kind of green. So when you compare kale and beet greens, kale is really high in vitamin C and would win that contest. And it has more calcium. But beet greens have a lot more potassium, which is very good for your heart. And they have twice as much iron, and they're rich in magnesium. And they're both rich in vitamin K and vitamin A. And beet greens have vitamin C too, and they both have fiber. They both have a lot of good stuff, but one might win out here and there. When eaten raw, a cup of kale has 6 calories, imagine, and only 8 for beet greens. The downside of beet greens is that they have more oxalates. So if you have a history of kidney stones, then you want to go easy with the oxalate rich greens. And also that oxalate can interfere with the absorption of some nutrients like the calcium and iron. So, there's no point in I don't think memorizing this, that. I think it's just good to eat a variety of greens, mix it up. That's why I love those boxed, pre-washed greens that have tatsoi and spinach and arugula and baby chard all mixed up, or baby kale all mixed up in a little box. If you get a little bit of all the gifts, I like to say they all offer different gifts for your body. So I'm just going to keep these stems, just mix them up. And then the next step is going to be adding the greens. So I'm just going to chop these up. That's kind of a lot to chop at once. I'll divide it into 2 bundles. And to make it easy, I just kind of collect them. And then I'm making, it's called chiffonade, when you make these strips, thin strips. I'm doing about 1/2-inch slices.
Can I interrupt for a
Yes,
minute?
please.
My beets are boiling. Is that okay? Do I let them boil? How long do I let them boil?
Yeah, they need to cook for a long time, depending on how small they are, maybe 30 minutes to 50 minutes. So I turned it down a little. Mine are still boiling. I would turn it down so that it's simmering.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, and then usually what I do is I use a fork and just kind of stick it in like I do with potatoes to see when
The
they're ready.
test.
Yeah.
And another fun food as medicine is when you chop up veggies, your some magic is happening. You're breaking up some of the cell walls. Same thing happens when you chew it. And it releases enzymes that activate certain phytonutrients. So I think it's just fascinating that the whole process of cooking, without really thinking about it, we're making food more bioavailable, the nutrients more bioavailable. And then the way we combine foods and we don't just eat this for dinner, but we eat it with, beans and grains, it makes some of these phytonutrients even more available. So here are our greens. Beautiful. It's fun cooking. All right, so then I'm just it's been a couple minutes. So these are softened up a little bit. I'm gonna try one, just see where we're at. These are a little tougher, I would say, than the Swiss chard stems are seem like a little less dense. So these might need a little bit more time. But they're gonna keep cooking when we add this anyway. They're a little, I'm gonna give them another minute or 2. A little tough. If you wanted to, you could season them with garlic, or you could use a little salt, but if you are concerned about hypertension, you want to go easy with adding salt. I also make borscht, which is beet soup. And when you make that, I use the veggie broth, I use the whole beetroot, I use the stems and the greens, and it makes a delicious soup. All right, now I'm going to add these greens. And if it starts sticking, you can turn the heat down a little bit. I like cooking not at high heat, but just at medium to even lower. It takes a little longer, but I think it's better for the nutrients. And if they're starting to stick, you can pour a little more veggie broth in. I love tongs for cooking greens because you can kind of pick them up and flip them. So everybody takes turn with the heat on the bottom. And when you add a little more veggie broth, it creates this steam. So they're cooking both by conduction on the bottom of the pan, but also they're getting steamed a little bit.
And
So add a little more veggie broth. Yeah.
Sandy, Joanne mentioned that she read that you should let the greens sit about 20 minutes before cooking, just to increase the nitrous oxide.
Yeah, that's true for sorry, I just wanted to give them a good mix. Especially with when you're weighed for nitric oxide, but also like those enzymes that I was talking about, they continue to do their work. So if you do chop your veggies ahead of time, it does increase the amount of nutrients that you can get from them. I love that. So this is, it's only been in there a minute and it's still like this beautiful bright green. It's getting wilty, but we're gonna simmer it for about 5 minutes. So get in there.
It's so pretty.
Right? Isn't it beautiful? I'm going to put a little salt in now. I don't have hypertension. 70% of the sodium that we do get, the average American, is not from the salt you're adding here. It's from packaged foods. So if you don't eat any packaged foods, adding a little salt for taste that makes things, if it makes it more palatable to you, is worth it, right? So all right, let me just see. I think they want that one. Yeah, so we're going to simmer them first and then add the lemon juice. Lemon juice is typically added at the end to really brighten the flavor. And this is the other thing I love. I just did a program at Kripalu with a chef. Like, from the chef perspective, they add the lemon juice at the end to brighten the flavor. But from a food as medicine physician perspective, you add the lemon because it's an acid, and the acid allows the body to get more of the iron and the calcium out of these leafy greens and boosts the nitric oxide content that you're going to produce in your body. So it's a good idea to enjoy your leafy greens with an acid. It can be balsamic vinegar, apple cider vinegar, lemon juice, or even like tomatoes. But from what I've read from Dr. Greger, if you guys don't know Dr. Greger, he's just a wealth of knowledge on nutrition and food. the more acidic it is, the more powerful that effect. So vinegar is more acidic than lemons, which is more acidic than tomatoes. I added a little black pepper. All right, I'm gonna turn this down low. I think did this need to cover it? Simmer for 5 minutes. I don't like covering them, I don't want them to turn that color, that dark. I want them to stay bright. And honestly, I like my greens chewier and crunchier, all of my food in general. And I know some people, for chewing reasons, like their food more tender. So it's a personal decision. If you want to stop now, like those are amazing right now, or you could cook it longer. So the garnish for this beet dish is a garlicky yogurt. So, okay, I got to be honest, I really don't like yogurt, but I got this pure coconut. I'm not sure it's what I would choose because coconut has more saturated fat. So this is made from organic coconuts, water, tapioca, and vegan probiotic cultures. Yeah, it's really not my thing. I would recommend more, sorry, someone else did my shopping for me. That's my disclosure there, because I wouldn't buy coconut yogurt. There's almond-based yogurts. There's other nut-based yogurts. You just have to make sure they don't have a lot of or any like added sugar and oil. So we're gonna take some garlic, and this, it says 1 to 2 cloves. I, I'm just smashing it to release the outer dry paper. Garlic, when you don't cook it, is very potent. So I feel like these are huge cloves. I'm definitely not adding 2. So I will add 1 and see how that goes. And you can mash it any way you want using a mortar pestle. I'm going to just use this garlic press to mash it. And garlic, like the other vegetables we talked about, also is kind of magical when it's raw and whole. You don't smell it, and most of the nutrients are inactive, but when you crush it, cut it, chew it, you're activating these enzymes, which are activating the phytonutrients, which is where it has its like anti-cancer properties and anti-inflammatory properties, and most of magic, the food is medicine stuff. It's like makes your eyes water, it smells, it makes sense. Like these are all these nutrients being produced that are doing that. And they recommend a pinch of salt. So it's like a flavored yogurt. And the other thing we're going to put on this recipe is chopped walnuts. I'm going to shut off my beet greens. It called for, this is optional, 3 tablespoons. I actually did 4. I love nuts. I eat a lot of nuts. It's, if you have coronary artery disease, or you're really trying to lose weight, nuts is something you have to be really mindful of. They're calorically dense, and you would want to go with a more, nut-free option or fewer nuts. All right, so we can't plate this really until we have our beet roots, but what we're going to do is take a plate, put our beet greens around, and then the beet roots cut up in the middle, and then top it with the yogurt and the nuts. All right, so, well, I actually will do this now. I normally don't make 2 greens at once, so it's a little, it doesn't really, these are gonna be cold by the time that's, yes. All right. So I'm going to put a little water in there. So I'm going to use the same pan. So what I'm going to do is just, make a plate of the beet greens. The beet roots are going to go in the middle. So we'll do that. Set that aside. We'll do that later.
Andy, do you know the brand of your pan?
So funny. This pan is new to me. I had it at Plant City where we did cooking demonstrations. I don't know where it came from, but when we were moving out of Plant City, this was there. And I don't know. I don't see a label, but I'll look underneath afterwards.
Thanks.
It's very heavy, I'll tell you that. And I'll also say, now that I have it, like, I'm not sure how I made greens without it. I love the high sides. I used to make it in a smaller skillet and the greens would be falling all over the stove. But now I can look. Crofton, Crofton. Never heard of it. And I honestly didn't buy it and don't know where it came from. We just, over the years at Plant City, we accumulated a lot of cooking supplies. All right. So now we're going to do our kale. Take my bouquet out of the water. And that's a great way to store greens, to keep them fresh or to revive them if they go limp. You cut off the bottoms and then stick them in water, just like tulips, and they come back to life. So unlike Swiss chard, beet greens, spinach, bok choy, where you want to eat the stems, these stems are really fibrous and tough and they don't taste good. So I know some people eat them, but I typically throw them out. So the ones that I throw out for the greens are collard and kale. They're very tough. Collards are one of my favorite greens for calcium. They're the highest. Kale, and some people, this is another tip, like always cook all your greens when you buy them. Like it looks like, oh, I can't eat all that, but they're gonna, once you cook them, you'll eat them. You can repurpose them for different things. But if they go uncooked in the refrigerator, they're more likely to wilt and go bad and lose their nutrition. So just cook them all. So I'm just stripping the stems, and these are a little, they have little leaves at the bottom I'm pulling off, but then you grab the leaf and just pull that stem out. I did take, at Napa, I went to the Culinary Institute of America conference last year, a food is medicine conference, and there was a Native American chef from award-winning, like, what's that called? Those awards they give to chefs.
Like James Beard or
Yes,
something like that.
he was a James Beard winner for his restaurant in Minnesota, and he was. And one of the kind of philosophies with Native American cooking is they don't waste anything. So he would take the stems and cut them it's pretty meticulous, cut them the long way, and then take, with knife skills, tiny, tiny pieces, like mince it up, and then he would use it, like cook it up. Actually, I haven't tried it, but gotta give him credit for that. It's definitely fiber in those stems. But if you chop them up the way we did with the beet greens, they would be really tough and big. All right, so now you got this big pile of kale. And it will cook down just like those beet greens did. So cook them all. I often buy 2 bundles of greens. We're going to do the same thing. Just chop them up. No matter what your leafy green is, you just it's like the decision, am I eating the stem or not? If I'm eating the stem, take the stem off and chew it and chop it up. If I'm not eating the stem, take the stem out and discard it. And then take your greens. I like to cut them up so they're bite-sized pieces. And again, like we talked about the nutrition with any cruciferous vegetable, which kale is, and collards and bok choy, of course, broccoli and cauliflower and cabbage and Brussels sprouts. Those are all cruciferous veggies. Those are really high in the sulforaphane. And that's that magic we were talking about where you chop them and let it rest for, I usually just say 5 to 10 minutes, just because unless you're like a really great planner, certainly you can let it go longer and let that antioxidant increase as it sits there. So I do try to when I'm doing any bean, any green, any grain, I start my grain and then I chop my green, let it set. Then I heat up my bean and then I come back to my green. So I just kind of build it in, it's got to work for me in my busy schedule. So letting it sit for half an hour may not be realistic for everyone. All right. You might have a better method for doing this. This was a big bunch. All right, so we're going to do the same thing. No oil. I love when people say, really? Like for them, they hear that for the first time. And then I love it more than anything when they try it and they're like, oh my God, it worked. So it's like an epiphany that you don't have to cook with oil. And the reason why it's such a big deal, like if you cook with oil at every single meal, you like dunk, you do this with the bottle, glug, glug, glug. Like how many tablespoons does that add up to in a day? And that really makes an impact. It's the little things you do over and over every day that I think matter more than the once in a while chocolate cake on your birthday, So when you just cut out all that oil is the most calorically dense macronutrient. It has 9 calories per gram rather than only 4 for protein and carbs. And oil is 100% fat. So it makes a big impact if you're trying to lose a few pounds or a lot of pounds. I turned on my pan, heating it up, medium heat. And then I'm going to put in a little bit of veggie broth. And I'll tell you, when I do onions and mushrooms, I don't even do the veggie broth because they release their own juices if you just let them be. You put in mushrooms and onions and you don't touch them. And as they heat up and cook, they start to release their own juices. And then you can move them around without sticking, without using any broth at all. And then if they do start to stick, you get this brownish build up on the pan, and that's the caramelization of the mushrooms and the onions, which is delicious. So then when you add a little bit of veggie broth or water and move them around, it loosens all that up and it just adds another layer of flavor. I'm going to throw all this kale in.
That's what I do when I make my tofu scramble. I start with the mushrooms and they just caramelize and it just gives everything a really good flavor.
That sounds great. What else do you put in your tofu scramble?
Towards the end, I put in some sort of a green. I put in turmeric, a little bit of pepper, salt, some coconut aminos.
Ooh.
And that's pretty much it. I just kind of pared it down. I used to do it a little bit more elaborate, but if I'm going to be eating it often, I just need it to be simple, and I can add things in after, like red peppers and things like that. But I just do a basic, and I just keep that in the fridge and add to it as I need to.
That sounds great.
It works.
I love tofu. Love it. All right. So instead of like olive oil, which people say, oh, but I love the flavor of that, we're going to add Kalamata olives to our greens. And you could do this with any green. They're salty, they're full of flavor, so they go a long way.
And Sandy, you have about 2 minutes left on your timer.
Oh, thank you. So I'm just chopping them up so they spread out throughout the greens. All right. You can also use capers sparingly. These can be high in sodium, so you don't need a lot. They are so good. So I'm going to use my tongs again to pinch and flip, pinch and flip. And it's already, you can see it's already kind of cooking down, reduced in size, bright green, beautiful. All right, and while that's cooking, I'm gonna test my beets to see where we're at. So where's my other? I lost my other mitt. Backup mitt. All right, so these are the boiled ones. Let's see how they're doing. You want to, they're definitely piercing. I think they need like another 5 minutes. So now we'll check the ones in the oven. This is what my kale looks like. Gonna pinch and flip, pinch and flip. Some of the pieces are sticking, so let me just try this. It needs a little more time. Okay, so I'm just gonna put a little more veggie broth in. There's like no seasoning in there, and it's great. It's kale. I don't know. It tastes great to me. But so let me just review the recipe. Yeah, you just add the olives toward the end. Reduce heat, cover. All right, so maybe I'll just cover this so it cooks a little bit more. Turn the heat down. So I'm just gonna cover it so it will cook through a little more. All right, let's check those oven beets. Boiling away. Interesting. Can you see? Yeah, there's bright red water in there. And now I'm wondering about whoever asked about drinking the water. Like, that looks good to me. I don't know. Ooh, these are more tender. So definitely, these are done. So I'm going to shut the oven off. And it said to let them cool in here, but for the sake of time, I'm going to take them out so they'll cool and I can handle them. I like doing this, cooking beets, and then letting them cool, taking the skins off, and then either slicing them up or making wedges. I'm going to test that water afterwards. I feel like it might be bitter, the cooking water, but and then I just put them in a container in the fridge and they're all ready to go. Sometimes I'll sprinkle balsamic vinegar on them too and put them in a container. And then every time I have a salad or whatever, like practically every meal, I'll just add some beets to my meal and they're all ready to go. They're so good for you. So as these cool, ideally, I'd let them cool like a half an hour. Just gonna put some here to make it. And when they cool, you can use your fingers and just slough the skins off. Usually pretty easily.
Sandy, I'm not going to be eating this tonight. Will these greens be okay to eat tomorrow?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So now we're to finish up the kale dish, I'm gonna turn off the heat. And I'm gonna add these olives. And I'm not going to salt this because these olives are salty. It's not going to need it. And you can do lemon juice to taste. So if you roll your lemon, it helps release some of the juices. Well, this is my grandmother's juicer that I love. It's a really juicy lemon. And look at that. I mean, it's like there's nothing left. And then I use this little strainer to just let the little bit of lemon juice, tablespoons. And that's done. So that's kale with lemon juice and olives, like so easy, right? Any green. We made this with Swiss chard at Crapalo last weekend. Spinach. So that's totally done. And yes, you could, this will last for probably 4 days, 5 days in the fridge. So good. Just eat the whole thing right now. And then we can also brighten our greens and increase our nitric oxide of these beet greens by putting, you can do this at the end of the cooking or just before serving. And we just want to distribute that through evenly so the lemon juice everybody gets some. All right. And then with these beets, see how it just peels right off this, the skins. Of course, it's easier if they're cooler. These are still a little on the hot side, but you can use a knife too, but you don't have as much waste when you just do this. and it peels off. And yes, my fingers are going to be a mess, but yes, they will come clean. So we have 5 more minutes. Just anybody that has questions, feel free to shout them out or put them in the chat while I finish cutting up these beets.
And
So,
Sandy, maybe while you're doing that, I'll talk a little bit about what
oh
we
yeah,
have
that'd be
coming up.
great. Yes, please. Thank you, Wendy.
You're welcome. So, thank you everybody for joining us. We have monthly cooking classes. So, the next one is on March 22nd, which is a Sunday, and it's all around more protein. So, we're going to be featuring tempeh and seitan, and Sandy's going to share a few recipes on how to cook those and make it easy. We've got in April, we have plant-based bowls. So we're going to feature an Asian and a Mexican-inspired bowl. And then in May, we are going to do-it-yourself sushi and spring rolls. So I'm looking forward to that one. I think that will be really fun. And then in addition, you'll see on our website, we have some food for life classes that are taught by Janet Limke, who is also a physician. Those classes are a small fee of $30, whereas the Plantox classes are free. Although we do, as you probably saw when you register, we love any donations that you're willing to make to help keep all of our programs affordable. We do provide scholarships to folks who might not have the means to participate in some of our other programs. Speaking of that, our main program that we feature is a Jumpstart Your Health program. And that's a 5-week long program, and we're offering the next one in the spring, in April. And then last but not least, we are offering for the first time in a while, in May, a class that features cancer fighting foods. So it's meant for anyone who has had a cancer diagnosis, anybody who's a survivor, and anybody who's really interested in using food to prevent cancer. So any questions, feel free to come off mute and let me know. And you can find all of those links to register on our website.
And the cancer one is a 4-week series. It's like cooking and education.
Yeah.
So it's similar to the Jumpstart, but the Jumpstart we do like lab assessment as well. And the other one's definitely focused on cancer. So I'm just gonna the boiled beets. No, those were the roasted beets. Those were good. The boiled beets did seem to lose more color. Interesting. I like these better. The ones that were in the oven with a little bit of water in the cover. It seemed like they retained their color better. And the ones that were boiled, unless that's just a bad beet, here, we're going to do more than one. Yeah, it's interesting. Unless that's let's just see. It's my experiment.
Those
Hmm?
those are my beets that were boiled. They came out pretty red.
Interesting. Let me see. Oh yeah. I mean, these are red, but the ones in the oven are more red. Just seeing them side by side. So interesting. I might do that way again. It worked out really well in there. They're a little tastier. I don't know. But anyway, so to finish the dish, you have the beet greens and the stems, and then you cut up the beets in the middle, and then you put. Like I said, I'm not a huge. If you were like a big yogurt fan, you could put a lot, and then sprinkle with nuts optionally. And that is the beet dish. You could do it on a bigger platter, you know, if you are serving multiple people. But yeah. Any other questions? All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining our quick and easy cooking together classes from Plant Docs. And I look forward to seeing everyone next time if you're interested. And Wendy will be sending out the recording. Right, Wendy?
Yep. Thanks, everybody.
Yep.
Oh, one quick question, Sandy, how many servings is that?
Well, I guess it depends on, this was 2 bunches and 6 beets or 5 beets that were pretty big. So this, you know, probably 6 people mine, but you know, if you only used 1 bunch and had 3 beets, then it seems like 1 beet per person, like one of those big beets per person is kind of like a good serving. But if you're a big vegetable eater, you know, you might want more than that. But I would pair this. I always think, as anyone who's worked with me, like any bean, any green, any grain. So this is your any green. I would partner this with a plant-based protein, legume-based, like a bean, and then also a whole grain like farro, quinoa. And then, you know, it's gonna be 2/3 of your plate probably if this is your dinner. All right. Anything else, Wendy, or is that everything?
I think that's it.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining
Thank you,
us.
everybody.
Thank you. Have a nice night.